Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. This hour we start in the United States, which is set to impose a 25% tariff on Indian imports starting on August the 1st. US President Donald Trump made the announcement on his social media platform Truth Social. He cited India's high tariffs, strict non-monetary trade barriers and its continued military and energy ties with Russia. Trump called India a friend, but said these barriers have limited US-India trade for years. A separate, unspecified penalty is also expected to be imposed. We're now joined by Jajit Bhattacharya. He is an economist and finance expert. He joins us live here on the program. Jajit, thank you very much for joining us on the program. This is a new announcement about half an hour ago on Donald Trump's Truth Social platform. Can you walk us through the nature of this new 25% tariff the United States plans to impose on Indian goods on August the 1st? Who will it affect the most?
Is that a question to me?
Yes, Jajit, thank you very much.
No, absolutely. So it's really going to hurt India. A significant amount of India's exports go to US. In fact, US is the largest export market for India. There's a whole bunch of goods that's exported to the US, starting with electronics. There is coffee, tobacco, gems, jewelry, jute, and so on and so forth. Now, there are multiple other nations which can export the very same things to the US, starting with China exporting electronic goods. So with a 20 to 25% tariff being imposed on India, Indian exports will get significantly displaced from the US market. So it is clearly a big hit for India. Now, if you look at the other way around in terms of what India imports from US, which includes aircrafts and aircraft parts, that is really not substitutable. If somebody is buying from Boeing, they will continue to buy from Boeing because it's an ecosystem purchase decision. So the impact of this will be larger on India, will be lower on US, but the US will also get hit. And things like medicines and pharmaceuticals will go up in the US. So obviously the pain will be on both sides, but there will be greater pain for India.
Jajit, Donald Trump on his Truth Social platform has said that India has some of the highest tariffs in the world and that calls them strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Can you analyze that bit for us? Donald Trump certainly has a way of speaking, but is this an accurate way of depicting India's trade?
No, not really. There are tariffs which are on the slightly higher side, but we are not the ones which are the highest or one of the higher ones by any stretch of imagination. These are tariffs which have been agreed upon after the GATT, the GATT round that happened. The high tariffs are only on sectors which we need to protect, such as agriculture, which is something that even US does and Europe does. Everybody needs to protect their agricultural sector, and we do the same. Automobiles is another sector where, because India started late, the Indian government had to give some protection to the automobile sector. And therefore, those one-off tariffs are looked at and they're taken out of context to show or to say that India has got very high tariff rates. In general, that's not really a correct view of the rates in India. The Indian rates are not extremely high. They are reasonable when you compare to, let's say, Brazil or even China and so on. So India really would not be does not fall in the highest category. Bangladesh has got much higher. China has got higher. In fact, the average rate for China is 34%, and India's the average rate is only about 26%. So India is not really the highest tariff nation the way Trump had put in.
Jajit, we've seen the words trade war appear quite frequently with the words tariff in regards to this saga. Do you think that India could retaliate to this 25% tariff? If so, what leverage does it have to do so?
Well, I mean, India is still importing a significant amount of farm goods and farm produces from the US. My guess will be that just like many other countries that retaliated on the farm sector with US because in a democracy, farmers are an important component, and therefore, if the farmers get hit, then that leads to a change in policy. And perhaps India will be looking at the farm goods that we import and put a tariff on those goods. Also, once you put a tariff on those goods, it also impacts India because the cost goes up. But any tariff that is put in does hurt both countries. Same is the case from US, and same is the perspective from India. But my guess really is that the tariffs will be on agricultural products to begin with.
Yeah, let's dive a little bit deeper into these certain sectors that are going to be affected the most. Which sectors of these Indian exports do you expect to be hardest hit by the 25% tariff? Are we primarily looking at agricultural, pharmaceuticals, textiles, copper, or something broader here?
No, these are exactly the sectors that you're talking about, which is, pharmaceutical is going to get hit majorly. US is a large market for the pharma sector. Same with electronics. US was continues to be a large sector for electronics. And look, copper is substitutable. There's a lot of Latin American countries which are exporting copper to US. But the manufactured goods are really the sector which will take a hit. However, do keep in mind that we are only talking about goods exports. India is a large exporter of services to the US, and that is not in the purview of this particular round of tariffs. We have as much amount of services exported to US as goods exported, if not higher, and therefore we are talking about less than 50% of India's exports to US, and within that, certain sectors getting hit. But this is a time that India could not afford or cannot afford to get hits because we are growing, and we don't want that that to be impacted at this point in time. And the key sectors such as pharma and electronics, which are on a growth path, will get hit with this tariff coming in. And once we lose market share, it's very difficult to get back that market share, even though the tariffs get corrected in future. So those are issues that we need to keep in mind. The impact may be, not just short term, but it'll be at least a medium term impact that will happen.
JJ, there's also mention of a possible 50% tariffs on copper and even a 200% on certain pharmaceutical items to the United States. How realistic is such an escalation, and what could it mean for India's manufacturing and export capacity?
In a way, I'll be happy if there is tariffs on Indian copper because India needs that copper. So I would rather prefer that there is a value addition happening to copper in India rather than raw copper being exported. But yes, ceteris paribus, all things being equal, at the moment, India will definitely get hit with this kind of a tariff. I don't have the numbers in my hand off the cuff in terms of how much copper we are exporting, but it's a critical raw material, and it's something that the US needs desperately. So I'm not sure who gets hit more because if the copper prices for US goes up, so will their EV prices, which is already reeling under the larger tariff rates that they are having to face. And so will be many downstream electrical and electronic industries. So copper is a very critical raw material for many industries and the entire electronic industry. So with the copper tariffs being put in, I don't know who gets hurt more because to me, it's a US industry which will be getting hurt far more than India will be. For India, we will conserve a very, very precious commodity which is needed across many sectors.
Okay, Jayjit Bhattacharya, please stay with us. We're now going to dive a bit deeper into this Truth Social post that Donald Trump posted just under an hour ago. Donald Trump, of course, references India as a friend to the United States. We see that relationship which the President of the United States and Prime Minister of India have. However, the President calls these tariffs far too high, among the highest in the world and the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Donald Trump then says that Donald Trump then mentions Russia. I want to just go back to you, Jajit, and just dive into this tweet a bit further. Do you see India and the United States still being so-called friends, especially after this action by the US President Donald Trump? Or do you see this as a new long-term strategy of the United States here?
I think we need to understand what is the definition of friends from a US perspective, because India and US has been friends for a long time. We have seen the 7th Fleet of the US Navy coming into Bay of Bengal, threatening the country. More recently, we have seen the US head of state sitting with Pakistan's military general to have lunch with them right after a very serious conflict which was initiated by Pakistan. And the utterances also seem to be not so aligned to India's interest. So what really does a friend mean from a US perspective? I think that's a definition which will drive whether we are still friends or not. Without having a thought to the disruptive impact that these increased duties will have on India, the US government has gone ahead and put those duties. US and India were supposed to be the first of the bloc to have the trade agreement with US, but there were certain sensitivities and red lines that India could not cross, such as agriculture, which is something that the diplomats and the trade negotiators should understand. The fact that the previous set of negotiations, which was a month and a half earlier, broke down because of insensitivity towards India's red lines from a trade perspective is not very encouraging. We have also seen challenges in terms of procuring the US defense equipment. We have been denied access to maps during the Kargil war, where the fine print was that you cannot use the maps and the location technologies during a conflict. Then why else would a military buy such technology? So from a military perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, from a trade perspective, if US and India does not seem to be aligned, if US is not aligned to India's interest, then I think we need to figure out what other dimension can we be aligned at, which might define these two giant democracies as being friends.
Just finally, is what I wanted to touch on, is of course there's mention of Russia in this post. Here, Donald Trump says that they have always brought the vast majority of their military equipment from Russia, and Russia are the largest buyer of energy along with China. At the same time, when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. Jajit, there's obviously this deadline that Donald Trump has set, which obviously includes Russia's allies as well, who buy their oil, who buy their military equipment. Should India be worried that if Vladimir Putin doesn't develop on this in this conflict, that Indians could face even higher tariffs here?
Yeah, of course. I think we need to be worried, and everything that Trump has said, he has gone ahead and done it, good or bad, right? He has, in a way, kept his word. Now, having said that, it looks a little hypocritical, because does US also say that they will stop buying uranium the moment if the deadline is not followed by Russia, because they're buying tons of uranium from Russia, and uranium is nothing but energy. So the US is buying energy in the form of uranium. The Europeans are buying energy in the form of natural gas. And India is buying energy in the form of petroleum because we have been pushed out of the rest of the market and we don't have the buying power. Now, all of us are buying energy, but these so-called sanction threats is only for one form of energy and not the other forms of energy is very hypocritical. If US really wants to send a message to Russia, it should say, I'll stop buying uranium for you, I'll cut my nose to spite my face. But that's not what's happening. US is not even threatening Europe or Germany, which is one of the largest buyers of gas from Russia. In fact, the value of that gas is significantly more than the value that Indian oil companies are buying from Russia. So yes, India should be concerned about the threat, but also this is not really a rule-based order that's we are talking about. This is an autocracy in the global world, a hegemony that we are observing. There is no rule that we see in this kind of a conversation.
Yes, Jayajit Bhattacharya, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. We will bring you all updates in regards to that ongoing situation. Now we move on. One of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded had struck Russia's far east Kamchatka Peninsula today with a magnitude of 8.8 and triggered tsunami waves in Japan and Hawaii and prompted warnings and evacuations across the Pacific. However, Japan has now lifted all tsunami warnings and downgraded it to tsunami advisory. This is according to Japan's meteorological agency. Russian authorities have also cancelled a tsunami warning for the remote Kamchatka Peninsula and the Kuril Islands. The Kremlin had also stated that all warning systems had worked properly and that there were no casualties. Experts have, however, said that some risks remain. We're now joined by our guests to discuss this in more detail. We're joined by VK Joshi, who's the former Director of the Geological Survey of India. Thank you very much for joining us, VK Joshi. This is one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded. How significant has the fallout of this been? And should people continue to be concerned about possible aftershocks that still have the possibility to occur? We've seen governments and meteorological departments reel back their warnings, but what's your assessment of this?
Well, when an earthquake of this magnitude occurs, aftershocks are bound to be there, and they can continue for as long as 6 months or maybe more. So we have to be on the alert, and post-disaster management has to be done at the best of efficiency, because so far there is no report of much loss of life. I have not seen it yet. But in such earthquakes, when the tsunami has also been generated, you never know which part of the those coasts which are affected by tsunami have a more population and will be affected badly, adversely. So we have to be on the alert.
Yes, indeed. How do you think that the governments have responded to this earthquake here? 8.8 magnitude is a substantive earthquake. We have countries like Japan, we have South Korea, Hawaii, who have also been hit with waves. What have you thought of the response of the people, of the governments that have had to act fast in these situations?
You were asking me or Dr. Sergey?
I'm asking you, VK Joshi.
Well, I won't be able to comment on that because I'm sitting here in India. I have yet to see the reports of what actions have been taken by the respective governments there. But of course, people there, personally have informed me that lots of measures are being taken for their safety. People have been asked to vacate lots of areas, coastal areas, and they are doing so. But exactly, I won't be able to give the details.
No, of course. We are joined as well by Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov, who's the president of the IDC Russia and director at the WHD International Board. Dr. Dvoryanov, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Of course, this has been a huge day in regards to the magnitude of this natural event. What more can you tell us on the occurrences in the east of Russia? Obviously, we have so far not heard of any fatalities. We haven't heard of any injuries even as per yet. However, there has been some images circulating online of people who say that it is the east of Russia that has seen quite substantial infrastructure damage. What more can you tell us about that region?
Yes, it's very true, 8.8 magnitude, and is a big disaster, but our post-disaster management is very well, and we can see that, again, this disaster reminds us about that we are in the same planet, we're in interdependent world, and we depends from nature. Right now, this challenger for Russian Federation again remind to us that we should take care about the humans and about civilians. And I can see that this natural disaster is not so big like we can tell with a catastrophe like it was, for example, in Turkey. It's of course from 1984 it was the biggest earthquake, but again I can see that according to the current situation, post-disaster management is doing very well to solve all these problems. That I can inform you according to some media report in Russian medias.
Yes, thank you very much, Sergei Dvoryanov, for joining us. Please stay with us as we bring you some visuals, some unique visuals of this event. Panicked sea lions divided into the sea as the quake hit the island of Ansternov, just off the shores of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. The island is known for natural habitat for Steller sea lions, as we can see them there, a large near-threatened species of sea lion. As the powerful quake hit the island and the rocks started falling, the sea lions were seen diving into the sea for safety. These are just some of the visuals that have come out of this event. Okay, there we have it. Sea lions just east of where that earthquake site hit. As you can see, the rocks are from the fallout from the earthquake, which are triggering panic among those sea lions there. We have some breaking news coming in, actually, that the Southern California coast is no longer under tsunami warning. We're once again joined by VK Joshi, who's the former director of the Geological Survey of India. VK, can you please explain some of these different levels of alerts? We've seen them go down from red, from high alert to just alert. How does one assess an area for no longer being at risk of serious damage when it comes to these tsunamis?
I will cite an example. Take a large tub of water and throw a brick on one corner of the tub. Fill it with water and drop a brick in that. Waves will be generated. You will find that the waves are generated, and the higher the intensity, more the intensity of the waves, more the intensity, more powerful they are. Tsunami waves are such that if a ship is sailing on the sea, the ship will not feel the tsunami wave because their wavelength is more, amplitude is less. But once they hit the coast, then they become deadly. Even a 3 feet high tsunami wave can cause considerable damage. So these warnings are issued according to the amplitude of the wave at a given spot. If the amplitude is more and the tsunami is going to hit a particular coast, the damage will be considerable and it will be labeled under red and accordingly yellow. So farther the area, lesser is the impact of tsunami. So in 1946, there was a tsunami in Hawaii, and that was a devastating tsunami, and that led to the establishment of Pacific Tsunami Center in 1949. Likewise, now world over, awareness is there, and these areas which are affected are also part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. So they are always on the alert and quite well prepared.
Yes, thank you, VK Joshi, for that insight. We have some more information for our viewers. Waves along the Peruvian coast could reach as high as 2.31 meters, otherwise, or 7.5 feet, following the tsunami alert after the quake earlier this morning, according to the country's National Emergency Center. We have some more news coming in from South America, where the earthquake has also hit. Chile's disaster agency, CENAPRED, has declared a tsunami red alert for the municipalities along the coastline between the regions of Africa and Peninsula in the north of the country and Magallanes in the south. Chile's Ministry of Education has also suspended classes for all educational institutions along the coastline between Africa, Peninsula and Los Lagos remain. We are once again joined by VK Joshi. This occurred in the Pacific Ring of Fire. What specific tectonic processes in this region contribute to such significant seismic activity?
It's a very hot spot, you can say. We have the Pacific Plate, which is being subducted under Eurasian Plate, where this earthquake took place, Kamchatka earthquake. And on the other hand, the Pacific Plate is also hitting the American Plate. So, this is a very area which is highly vulnerable, and we have lots of volcanoes also. So, God forbid if there's a volcano is also activated due to some other reason. But certainly, this area is prone for earthquakes and tsunamis, and I don't know what's going to happen because the plates are never stable. They can't be, so they are on the move. So this South American earthquake, especially in the Chile area, it's quite amazing. No? Maybe the other areas in the world are also affected by such earthquakes in the time to come. Near time to come.
VK Joshi and Dr. Sergei Dvoryanov, thank you very much for joining us here on NewsX World. Well, that is all we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.